And honestly, I think a lot of people don't realize how much our inner child is hurting and bleeding into our adulthood, right? So, like, I feel like as I walk through this journey of life and I walk into the void, I'm starting to notice that everything that comes to light goes directly back to who I was when I was a child.
Welcome to Mindset Mastery with Julissa Edwards, the podcast dedicated to helping high performers unlock their true potential and cultivate a powerful mindset for success. I'm your host, Julissa Edwards, a mindset coach and advocate for healthy high performance. Join me on this transformative journey as we delve into strategies, insights, and inspiring conversations with experts and thriving high performers. Get ready to master your mindset, elevate your performance, and create a life of purpose and fulfillment. Let's dive in. We have another beautiful interview style episode coming up for you, and we have the opportunity and the blessing to interview Jennifer Abreu, aka Jen The Spiritual Baddie. She is a multifaceted spiritual healer and life coach with a central focus on deep inner child healing and unwavering self-love. Her goal is to guide women into their divine purpose, but by removing the limiting belief placed upon them as children. Yeah, this is probably one of the more vulnerable episodes that we get to showcase, to share with our audience, and I don't take that lightly. So we go pretty deep into Jen's inner child, into some of my inner workings that I've been through, that I've worked through, and this is an episode that I would encourage you to listen to when you have the chance to be uninterrupted. There's a lot of impactful sharing and understanding that occurs in this conversation that I think will help a lot of people. I think a lot of us could relate to some parts of Jen's story that she speaks through in her evolution as a woman, as a mother, and now a healer, a coach. It is absolutely beautiful. It is a testament to the growth that she's had in her own healing journey. And when we can learn and listen from someone who has done the work, who has been through, everyone's own version of hell and back, and she's overcoming it, still working on the things. It is just a blessing. It's like if you're in therapy or in coaching or in self-help of some sort, and you want the answers to the end result, like here it is, and you still have to do your own work to get there. But wow, is it such a blessing to have a roadmap of maybe what that could look like for you. So without further ado, enjoy this episode. And yeah, I hope your heart is in it and you gain all that you're supposed to from this episode. I feel like, so for those that don't know, me and Jen, our mastermind sisters, we're under the same mentor right now. And I'm just getting to know Jen, but I feel her energy. She's fierce, she's spicy, she is all the things that I think is going to make this conversation so good, impactful, and just really just a good episode. So I'm going to ask you a question, Jen. So can you share a little bit more about your journey in becoming a multifaceted spiritual healer, life coach, and how you focus on deep inner child healing throughout your work?
Absolutely. Love that. So I guess for me, I feel like everything started from life, the school of life, right? You go through all of these experiences, all of the trials, the tribulations, the trauma, and it takes you to a place where when you begin to heal, you say, wait a minute, I have to share this information. I have to teach others that there's other ways, other coping mechanisms to life where you don't have to actually numb the pain, is what I like to use. Because a lot of times we're running away from all of the trials, all of the tribulations, all of the traumas of our childhood instead of facing them head on and figuring out or unpacking what is it that's triggering us in our adulthood. And so as I moved through my healing journey, I knew I needed to teach. I knew that this needed to become a thing. And it's been a journey, but I feel like also I'm still healing as I'm teaching others on this journey to heal themselves.
Absolutely. And so you've been gravitated towards helping women, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, what I fully, resonate with what you're saying too. Like, yes, as healers, and I don't say that, in a pompous fashion. I think, for someone that is an embodiment of their work, like you and I within our businesses, we've learned so much along the way. And I love what you said, that through the schooling of life. And it comes to a point where some of us feel called to just share that knowledge and wisdom with others. And so you're doing that in your own special way within your clientele. So what is it about working with women that really lights your soul?
I feel like it's what I know. From very young, I've always been surrounded by women, my aunts, my mom, her friends, and just watching them. I had to grow up at a really early age. And so watching them move through their adult things, I realized, and now in my adulthood, as a mom, as a wife, I realized that these women were also still learning. They didn't know what they were doing. They didn't have someone to walk them through these things um, that we need to walk through. I guess that's the best way for me to say it. But ultimately, it's also what I see. There's so much potential in women. We don't give ourselves enough credit. And I think when you have
Mhm.
someone that's actually saying to you, hey, you're worth more than this. You have to do better. You should be doing better. We need to stand up for ourselves. We need to hold our boundaries up. When you start to hear it over and over again from someone, it starts to click. Like, oh,
Yeah.
she's right. I need to get in alignment. I need to do these things. And I grew up and I watched all of these women around me doing the things that they were doing, not learning the lessons, repeating the cycles, and doing it to their children. So for me, it was important, especially as a mom, I'm raising boys, I'm raising two boys. It's important for me to teach women that we should be raising kings, right? That's one. But also that we have to take care of ourselves. And so this is why I've gravitated towards women because we can be incredible as long as we know our potential.
Can you walk us through some personal obstacles that you've gone through, some traumas that you've gone through that really molded your passion for inner child healing?
Oof, that's a doozy, but yes, I can. There's a lot of moving parts to my childhood. So to go through it quickly, I am the daughter to my parents moved from Puerto Rico to New York right after having my brother. He's 4 years older. My brother is gifted and talented, so went to all of the best schools in the Bronx, and then went to Yale. He's a Yale graduate, Harvard graduate, and Rutgers Law. And so,
Mm,
because I was not my brother, as far as gifted and talented. And for me, I required a lot more stimulation. I needed to be more stimulated. Um, it was very difficult for me in my childhood to sit still, to listen, to even move through my school years. Having my brother be
yeah.
that smart, that much of a genius with all the accolades, and having to keep up with that when that wasn't my purpose. It wasn't what I was meant to do. I wasn't meant to be my brother. We were separate,
Mhm,
and very different. So he's very dedicated to his
mhm.
books, and I'm dedicated to let's have a good time. Let's go out, let's play, let's be curious. And it led to that competitiveness that I found within other people. I wanted to always be better because I was raised to be, if not as
Mm,
good as my brother, then I wasn't good enough. So there was a lot of like, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you can't do these things that your brother can do. So I was abandoned in a way. My feelings were not valid. Even though I would
yeah.
scream and cry and say, "Hey, see me for me," I wanted to be seen for me. I wanted to fit in. I wanted people to, you know, love on me because I was smart or whatever it was that I was just trying to lean in on. My parents didn't give that to me. And so what I did
Mm,
was immediately I ran away from home at 15. And I moved in with a friend. And even that home was very, very turbulent. Um, and by 18, I was out on my own, just figuring it all out, right? Having to learn on my
mm,
own what to do, what's next,
wow.
how to make a dollar, right? And so in that life, right, where you're trying to be seen and validated, you start to search outside of yourself for those things. And so because of that, it led
Mm,
me to a lot of meaningless relationships, right? A lot of lack of respect, a lot of doing things to fit in, to belong. And so my 20s, which were super crazy, were indirect, me not knowing this until obviously now I'm doing the work, but led directly to or connects directly to Jennifer as in a young age that just wanted
yeah.
to be loved for who she was, seen for her capabilities that weren't someone else's capabilities, validated or even just, just celebrated for being alive, for being happy, for being curious, for wanting to do
Mhm.
things that were outside the box, and I was always very spunky and spicy and all the things. And
Mm,
I was told to be small, to be quiet. I was too much, you can't be curious. You have to, sit in the corner and just be still. Why can't you be like your
mm,
brother? And all of that has affected me,
I bet.
and so that's my 20s were rebellious. I was yeah,
Yeah.
numbing the pain with drugs and alcohol, partying. My job was I was bartending, which was
Yep.
directly in connection with let me numb the pain,
Yeah.
let me feel seen behind this bar. So I was belonging, right? I was doing things to belong. I was bringing in money to pay the bills for my rent, obviously, but
Mm,
I was not Jennifer. I was just doing things to feel seen, to feel loved, and all of that was just meaningless. It wasn't the real me.
yeah.
And so
Jen, thank you
that
so
was a
much for
lot.
sharing that, vulnerable
It was a lot.
share. I honor your truth. And you know what's something, being Latina and being called spicy could be seen as a bad thing. But I mentioned it earlier, even when simply introducing you, for me, it's an powerful thing. Like, I look at you, and again, like, we're just getting to know each other, right? I'm learning more about your story and I'm falling more in love with you as a person. And when we're in our meetings and I'm seeing you online and I'm getting to understand the full picture of you, when I see you, I feel like you embrace, this beautiful Latina woman, like, even in the simple things of like your attire, your hoop earrings, like your spiciness, like all those things I admire. And I think that you're showing it and wearing it proudly. And so it's a testament of all your inner work, because if you're stating that this was something that wasn't celebrated maybe in your younger years, with a lot of comparison to your brother who was more, I'll say that he's gifted and talented in academia, which is beautiful. And your talents were just
Right.
elsewhere, right? You were a different kid, someone who needed to move around more. And maybe, family just lacked knowledge of how to properly support that at a younger age. What I also want to bring to light is that, trauma can
Yeah.
often be defined as individuals that go through a hard time and adversity and are not two things. They don't feel supported, and they don't feel like they have a community to lean back on, right? So here you are as a young girl, going through all that we're going through, and we all have our own traumas that we have in our upbringing. But that, I think the biggest piece for you, which led you to flee, is that you didn't feel that you had the community or the support to hold you through those tough moments.
Right. That's absolutely right.
Mhm.
And you go into fight or flight, right? And so I was too young to process the fight for what you believe in or fight for your what you stand for. So it was like,
Mhm.
no, let's go. Let's leave. And leaving, although now I see it as at first it was like, why did I do that? Now I'm like, oh no, I needed to learn how other families worked too. Um, and then I needed to learn how it
Mm,
was to be alone at such a young age, right? And so you get that, oh, I'm
mhm.
independent. I don't need anybody. I do this for myself. And it's so funny too, because me going directly into bartending was also a form
And
of me
they
being a
dish,
healer because
yes.
people go to bars to receive healing. They're like, yeah. Um, so it all kind of came full circle for me. I was so good at what I did. However, it was, under the, the drinking and
Sure.
and the drugs. So it was like I was down a slippery slope, but there was still my purpose was still there. My mission was still there as well. And I created so many beautiful connections at the time. And a lot of it stemmed from me just wanting to be supported. It's exactly what you're saying. It's that
Mhm,
I
mhm.
just
Feel
wanted
safe, feel seen,
to
feel heard,
feel
feel
safe.
accepted, right? When you think about it, it's like, what human doesn't want that? Like, what human doesn't yearn for that? It's just a
Right.
biological need to
Right.
feel wanted, to feel loved. And so this, and I've been there too, girly. Like this mentality of like I can do it all, like rah rah rah, like this very defensive, like kind of like armor that we put on, or that we put on in a past version of ourselves. It came from a place of hurt, right? It came from a place of, well, I can't depend on anybody, so I have to do it by myself,
Mm.
and it's a learning lesson. It couldn't be further from the truth, right? When we find ourselves and I think the journey for me, at least for me, and you can tell me if it correlates with yours, of finding myself and understanding that like I am lovable, and I don't have to output things in order for people to like me, to love me. I don't have to produce in order to receive a loving interaction. For me too, like, household grades were very, very important in my household. And I was good in school. I was good at regurgitating information, right? And but that led to, you see, like it's the opposite here. That even though I was good in school, that led to me believing that if I didn't have good grades, then I wasn't worthy. If I wasn't top of the class, then it wasn't good enough. If I literally, and
Mm.
me and my mother have spoken about this, and so we're good, right? But like, if I received anything less than a B plus, it was like, oh my god, like everything is like, this is not, this is you're not, to a little girl, it's like you're not worthy. So with all that being said, do you relate, Jen? Is that
Okay.
a part of your healing experience too? And is that what you gift to other, women and people in your practice?
Absolutely. Stillness is the number one part of my practice. It is what I talk about the most, is about finding the stillness. We are in such a rush all the time. Life is constantly moving and got to do all the things, got to do all the things. And I find that's so such a desperation, right? That being in that hustle mode, which I think is beautiful, right? When we're hustling, but when we find the stillness, every time I sit to meditate or I say I'm going to rest, I'm going to take a break, I need to pour into Jennifer, is when I start to see my business do exactly what it is that I'm building it to do. And it's become one of those things where, um, to be very honest and transparent, it's a little scary because I'm so used to the rush, 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 so used to the hustle that when I do practice the stillness, I'm like, what is going on here? Why are these things connecting? And I feel like that's universe, source, God telling me, I already told you to slow down. You need to slow down and pour into you. And when you're pouring into you and you're focused on you, I'm going to give you what you need. So it's pretty crazy the way it works, but I've been seeing it a lot more often. And I'm in hustle mode right now, right? So I have so many things, events, retreats coming up. There's so many things coming up for me. And yes, those are the moving parts, but it's literally in my stillness where I'm like getting the messages. Hey Jen, thank you. Want to set up a call? Let's talk about it. And I'm like, oh, this feels good. This feels nice, but we are so programmed to work, 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 do all of the things. And I think that specifically me being a Latina and coming from a mom who worked 3 jobs and was rarely home, um, you don't feel okay in the stillness. The stillness is triggering. It makes you almost feel like you're not doing anything. That's why I'm like, oh, God is here to be like, hey, you're doing something. Sit back and relax because something's happening here.
We're so used to the go, go, go in our society that, from our past traumas, also mixing that into just our society just being such a fast paced thing nowadays with social media, with all the things that we can educate ourselves on. Like, it feels like it's a never ending opportunity to better ourselves and do all the things, which is fantastic. There's a time and a space for that. And I honor that. And then also, there's much needed moments of stillness so that we can have inner peace, so we can calibrate all the things that our life has taught us in a more impactful way of how we can share that with our communities, right? So earlier you said, Jen, that you're in a period of hustle, as am I, and I think sometimes people get confused with the understanding that just because I'm working hard doesn't mean that we haven't healed per se, because I really value the lifestyle that my life has now gifted me through all of my trials and tribulations of there is a blissful part of life where I don't have to work as hard to receive the thing,
Yep.
right? And I heard it when you were saying, like, when I stop and meditate, when I stop and be in stillness, then people reach out to me. And so it's not that there's this like la la life where like you don't do anything and everything comes your way. It's more so the emotional reasoning behind the actions that we're doing. So a past version of myself would work really hard because I didn't feel worthy if I wasn't hustling at the thing that I was doing, so I could low key make myself feel better about myself, right? Right? Versus now, I'm still working hard, but my vision is bigger, my impact is different. Like, I'm thinking about how can I work in the best way. So let's say one leg of my business to help mothers, or the other leg for CEOs, right? Like, how can I work in a stronger fashion where I can have more impact on my communities by bettering my systems, by doing all the things that we're doing to have be a more impactful business owner and leader. So I'm still working hard, but it's not so much, oh, Jaleesa's not good enough. And so I have to prove to myself that it's like, no, 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 we're past that. This is a bigger mission here. And because I'm doing so much more than my one man team was doing before, now that I have people to lead, it's like, no, now even more importantly, you need stillness. You need recalibration. You need alignment so that you can lead your team to the best efforts to really get this mission on and popping. Does that resonate with you too?
Absolutely. And it's funny when you said that there's that feeling of not being worthy because we're not moving as quickly as we were before, right? Um, yeah, I feel that all the way through because this doesn't mean that I'm not working, but I am still in that stillness because I know that I need it so that my mind can work properly and more strategically and effectively so that I can build community, right? Because when you're a one woman show, people can see that. They can see that
Mm-hmm.
you're teaching stillness, you're teaching the slowing down to speed up, but you're all over the place. So
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't until I started, and this is very recent for me because I was a one woman show for a long time. It
Yeah.
wasn't until I was like, oh no, I need help. I need to hire in people to help me strategize. I need to get myself a mentor to keep me in alignment. Um,
Right.
and I need all of these kind of moving parts so that I can find the stillness, but also so that I could spend time with my family, with my kids, so that I can be a present mom and still be able to hold space for my community. So I think that that's key. And when we're in that, oh, I do all the things, right? Because I used to love to say that. Oh, I do all the things. Uh,
Yep.
that gets you tired quick. You burn out easily. And so
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you just have to make small investments in order for
Mm-hmm.
you to move through life more smoothly. I guess is the right way to say it, to have a little more ease, to have a little more stillness. And you'll see that in those investments, right? Those small investments can change your life so that you can show up more, not only for yourself, but for the people that you're calling in.
Yeah. You know, you bring up so many good points, and now energetically, so we work a lot off of energy, right? The energy that we give off, the frequencies that we give off. You're right. I too was once the woman that was like, I do it all, and I do it all, like, and I got it under control. And it's like, well, I was a machine that was putting out a lot of output. And while I was doing great in what I was doing, I was exhausted.
Yeah.
I was unfulfilled. Even though from the outside looking in, people would look at me as inspirational or like, wow. But it's almost like a facade because energetically, deep, deep down inside, I was so tired. I was still struggling with like, is this enough? Even though I was doing the most, right? And so, to what you're saying, I think that's a really big testament of your growth, of our evolution. You know, now I am trying to handle things with more grace, right? I'm more concerned with giving people on my team, in my community, in my family, responsibilities that will help everyone as a whole so that it's not all on me, right? You go from maybe savior complex, right? Of like trying to do all the things and trying to help everybody and doing the most. And it's like, that's still coming from a very hurt part of self. You have good
Yes.
intentions, but it's very much, yeah, you're in pain, right? Versus like, okay, now we're working, we're healing, we're evolving, and it's like I'm still the same person, like you, the version where you were the bartender, right? You still have a heart of gold. You still want to impact your society. It's just now you're in a position now in your business where you can do so with more leverage in a more organized fashion and have greater impact on people because of the healing that you've done.
Right. Right. So, and the healing, I just want to be clear, it doesn't stop.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
like and because I focus so much on my inner child, I move through the 7-year-old version of me, the angry 14-year-old version of me, the 21-year-old version of me who was still trying to figure things out, right?
Yeah.
And now that I'm at this age of 42 and I'm still figuring it out, right? I'll
Yeah.
be 43 this year and I'm still like working on things. Um, I find that giving the responsibility. So at first, when I was still in that hurt, wounded space, it
Hmm.
felt like I was giving away my control. And I still kind of battle with that, right? Like the having to release that control where other people can actually do the job, right? The job you're
Hmm.
giving them to do, the responsibility that you're giving them to do. I still kind of struggle. I struggle with that, right? Because I like to do all the moving parts, but that's the work. That's when I go back to the younger versions of me and I reparent that little girl that wanted to do all of the things and wasn't able to. And now that she can, it's like, oh, she gets to do all of these things. So I'm not going to let anybody else do it. But it's like, no,
Hmm.
we want to create this team and this empire where you're not alone, where
Hmm.
it's something for you to
Hmm.
build and grow and expand and maybe pivot when it doesn't feel good and you get to change and give yourself grace like, hey, that didn't work, but let's try this, right? And
Hmm.
so in doing all of those things, I have to go back to all of the versions of me.
Hmm.
The 7-year
Hmm.
old me. I always say 7, those are pivotal. 14, 17, 21. All of those versions of me that needed to be held, that wanted to do the most, who
Yeah.
wanted to feel seen and heard and understood. And then I'm like, okay, go back, start to reparent her, love on her, give her what she needs so that she understands that it's okay to have a support system. It's okay to have help. It's
Yeah.
okay to be a part of something. You can still be who you are, but you need community, you need people, you need your support system, right? And doing it alone is just such a lonely journey. Why would I want to go on this journey alone when I can find someone or people that I could share it with? And
Mm-hmm.
that's been huge in my healing, and it's another part of me, of my teaching too. Like, it's okay to lean on others. It's okay to ask for
Mm-hmm.
help and
Mm-hmm.
go back to the lonely version of you who just wanted to control everything and tell her, "Hey, we're gonna be okay. It's gonna be all right," you know?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for your truth. I can feel the love that and compassion that you have when speaking to your younger version of self. Like it's very much apparent. And it's touching because you can see the work that you've done to really instill that relationship where you can reparent her, where she can trust you to take lead in a way that looks like leaning on others, right? My insight from what you're saying is that it's like, why would you want to do this thing alone, where being alone in your younger years is what allowed you all, is what brought in all this pain,
Yeah,
right? Like, why would you continue to, partly, right, we know as healers, like, it's because it's all you know, so it's what you're doing, right,
right,
unconsciously. But when you think about it logically, it's like, why would you continue building a life where you have to be by yourself, if that's exactly what you ran from, because you were by yourself.
right. You know, it's funny, I haven't even thought of it like that, but that's exactly it. That's
Hmm.
exactly it. I was trying to build a life by myself to be independent, right? I could do all the things by myself, but why would I want to? I want to be held. I want to be
Hmm.
supported. And that's what my younger version wants. So that's what I'm going to give her.
Yes, yes, that's what I'm going to give her. Absolutely, yeah. So I want to empower, not empower you, but I want to thank you and honor you. That's a better word. I want to honor you because when you talk about your past, I can very much, like, in the way that you're talking about it in your frequency, I can imagine, it's easy for me to picture what you're describing because that is someone who is very much in tune with their emotions. That is someone who is doing the work of going back and bringing her forward and doing all the things. And in the world of metaphysics, time is irrelevant. And so the version that you were at 14, 21, 7, like, she's still very much alive. She still needs coddling from time to time. She still needs nourishment from time to time. And so it's almost, when you talk about those versions, like, it's easy for me to see who that woman or little girl was, even in real time, and again how you're leading her through the hardships, right? Like, the healing is never ending. So, and the way that you talk about your past too, we spoke about some heavy things, and it's not that it's bad to break down. If you need to cry about it, people that are on their own healing journeys, like, cry, that's necessary. But I think it speaks testaments when someone is able to speak about those things and have organized thought behind it. As a therapist, a clinician, that's something that we look for, of like, are people, when they speak about their past, are they getting lost in the sauce? And that's okay if you are. It's just a testament of where you are in your healing journey, right? Or are you able to speak about it in a concise manner where it's like, okay, like, this person has understood herself. She has done the work. She's able to talk about it and still admit that she's still going through it, because we all are. Again, in an organized fashion. So I honor that you've done the work, and you're in a much better place now. So in honoring that, is there something in your life right now that you are still struggling with, and that you'd like to share with us at this time, to just prove that, like, this is an everlasting journey and there is no fear about us still working on us, because it's very much needed.
Yeah. So I would say right now, the biggest struggle for me is surrendering. I control is big for me. Um, Not having it feels, and it's not that I don't have control, it's more of, this is my business and I want it to work in the ways that I want it to work. So I'm very like, me. I want this and I want that. And it always takes me back to, no, Jen, you built a team so that we can see it from different perspectives. right? You have this support system that you speak to so that they can walk you through that. I did that strategically so that I can let go of the ego. The ego
Mm,
is my driving force to control.
mhm,
And
mhm,
as a spiritualist, um, it's all about what I teach is surrender, right? Letting go, facing the dark parts of you, being able to walk through this path or this journey and go with the flow. It's another big teaching of mine. However, I have struggled with that. I struggle with the ego and how the ego ties into I'm the one that's making the things move around here. And
mm,
and that's been really tough. Like I get in my mentorship, I get all of the stuff right here. Jen, use this for strategy or build this. And I'm like,
mm,
it makes me feel like, well, why isn't what I'm doing working?
Why isn't what I'm doing enough?
Right. Oh, well, why isn't it enough? Because it is working. It is
Mhm,
working and it's worked up until this point. But it's just like, but why do I need these extra things? And oh, I feel seen. I'm feeling very seen. And when I sit in my meditation, for some reason, my mind goes directly to that. Jen, surrender. Jen, let go. Jen, why are you trying to be, all of the things? Why are you trying to control things? Let things be, let them flow. And you'll start to see that it's so much easier to navigate life when you are not swimming against the current, that you're actually going with the current. And so right now, specifically in my business, um, I am having trouble letting go. I have been doing a lot of collaborations and I'm like, okay, calm down.
mhm,
Calm down, Jen. It's okay. It's okay to let someone else take the
mhm.
lead for the moment.
Yeah. Okay, if I could speak into it from what you shared earlier, for me, what I'm seeing, girly, is that this is a possibly a reminder of your childhood with your brother. Right. So you told us that he was good in academia, and like your family honored that, praised that, and would probably make into insights or comments of like you should be more like him or do things like him, and that created the rebellious girl inside of you to be like, no, I want to do things my way, even though it was rebellious where I want to do it my way, but it was also a hurt of like, is my way enough? Can I be enough doing things in a fashion that doesn't look like his, right? Where I can't sit still and I can't do all the things that I need to be able to play and be creative and that whole aspect. And so when our mentor is saying things like you should try doing things this way, although of course she has good reason and it's working, so
It
we
is
should
working.
follow, right?
Yeah.
But it's a reminder of here's somebody not in power, but someone who's a little bit ahead of me, like a parent, right? Who is telling me to do things a different way that it's like, well, isn't the way that I'm doing it enough? And so when I asked that question prior, it wasn't a means of like, are you doing enough? Of course, what you're doing is enough. Look how far you've gotten with your own strategies and things that you are implementing. But more so the emotion, the little girl inside of you emotionally is asking, isn't what I'm doing enough? So it's hard to take leadership. It's hard to take what's the word I'm looking for? Direction without feeling less than. That's
Right.
what I'm picking up from this.
That's what it is. And it goes back to, for sure, my brother and it's so funny because it's like he's not guilty of anything here, right?
No.
Um,
Yeah.
but it goes back to that. It's like, do what your brother did because that's the right way to go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Subconsciously, that's what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, and what the people around me are giving me is insight and direction from a loving
Mm-hmm.
place. And
Right. Right.
it's hard for me to see that without feeling like I'm being asked, or being tested, I should say,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I am leaning in on accepting all of what people are giving me. and then removing what works and what doesn't, but I am testing everything out, because that's important too. It's like, okay, let me make sure that this works for me, and if it does, great. If it doesn't, let's move on to the next thing and lean in on, hey, saying, hey, that didn't work for me, but I do want you to help me with something else.
Yeah, yeah. I think this it's not just, your story is helping so many people because I can see that happening for so many women, men. But it's just this act of not being able to take or having a hard time taking direction because it competes with your internal insecurities of like, well, it's not, why is what I'm doing not enough? It's combative energy, which is very much like a young girl, which is like we're honoring her, right? And think about how that could show up in relationships, right,
Oh,
with men.
yeah. Yep. In my marriage as well. My husband's always like,
Mhm.
well, he feels, he's like, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells because I'm about to tell you something that you need. And
Yeah.
he's like, and I feel like he's gotten to the point where he's like, I say things to make you feel like you came up with the idea. And I'm like, that's genius, first of all. But at the same time, I'm like, no, like I need you to check me where I need to be checked so that I can
Yeah.
work on that. But yeah, he's gotten really good at giving me ideas and
So,
making me feel like I created them.
in the world of balancing masculine and feminine energies, which I know you know a lot about, that's what we normally do to men, to people heavy in their masculine, which is what happens when we're hurt. We go heavy in the masculine. It's hard to
Yes.
be in the feminine, right? So if your husband is saying that like he positions things in a way that it feels like you came up with the idea, that's usually like your old school example of like a man who's a CEO of like, okay, he's not going to take a direction from anyone else, so we have to make him feel like it's his idea, right? And so your automatic notion of like, well, you need to check me, while it's within good reason, that's also still very masculine to check somebody to, it's very, very hardcore. And what we're learning through me too, girl, through our conversation is that our little girl needs to be nurtured. So
Mm,
she doesn't need to be checked.
yeah.
She needs to be held with love and said like, hey, I'm going to propose an idea. And because I love you, I'm going to preface it with saying that it's with good intention, even though we know it is. But she needs to hear that because whenever people have given her advice in the past, it's made her feel very insecure.
Yes. That's wow, that's beautiful. And that's exactly what I need. That is what Jennifer, the younger version of Jennifer needs, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
honestly, I think people don't realize, a lot of people don't realize how much our inner child is hurting and bleeding into our adulthood, right? So like I feel like as I walk through this journey of life and I walk into the void, I'm starting to notice that everything that comes to light goes directly back to who I was when I was a child or what I was
100%.
hiding when I was.
100%. And I'll share this, before we close. So my beginnings began as like a traditional psychotherapist, and then I became a coach and all the things spiritual healer. But to be frank, in the beginning of my workings, like there's so much education on like, childhood development. It was like child, and when I was beginning as a therapist, I was like, bro, you cannot tell me that everything goes back to your fucking childhood. Like, like I would be like, I'd be like, come on, like there's got to be more to therapy than that. Like, and here we are 10 years later in the field of helping people. And I'm like, nah, girl, everything really comes back down to your childhood. It's really this big thing. So, Jen, I want to thank you for your vulnerability. I want to applaud you, commend you for your growth. Like you are someone who has shared your story with us. You've overcame a lot of trials and tribulations. Like look at where you are today. You're leading from example. You're embodying your truth, and you're helping so many people, so many women. So thank you for being on the show. Where can women find you? Where can people find you if they want to work with you? If they want to learn more about what you do? What's the best way they can reach you?
So my major platform is Instagram. And my Instagram handle is at Jen, Jen underscore the spiritual baddie, and baddie is Baddie. I can also be found locally in New Jersey. I do host free yoga classes Saturday morning at 6:15 a.m. and 7:30 a.m. at the Red
Okay.
Room Studio in New Jersey. The yoga is free. And the reason why I do it for free is because I want to hold space for the women in my community. I do get men who come to my yoga class, so it's open to all humans. But if you want to receive that type of healing, I hold that space specifically for free because we all need some type of healing. We all need to check in with our minds and our bodies.
That's
So
beautiful.
yeah. That's
Thank
that's
you. Thank you.
that's my closing thing is I like to share that yoga space, and soon it'll be online for free as well.
Okay, beautiful. So you heard it here. You can also check our show notes. All of her links will be provided there. Connect with Jen. She's amazing. She's beautiful inside and out. And thank you so much for being here with us today, girly. This was so impactful, so educational, so very much needed. And I know that our listeners will connect to some part of our stories shared here today. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into Mindset Mastery with Julissa Edwards. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast to receive future episodes packed with valuable insights. Remember to follow us on social media at thehealthy.highperformer for more inspiration, tips, and updates. If you found this episode helpful, we'd appreciate it if you could share it with your network and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support means the world to us as we continue to empower high performers like you. Until next time, keep mastering your mindset and thriving as a healthy high performer.